Well, hey everyone, great to be with you today. My name is Franey. I'm one of the pastors here at Emergence and excited to share with you today from Acts chapter 5 as we continue our devotional series in the book of Acts. So just to catch us up a bit from to where we are in this section, we see that the apostles were arrested for sharing and teaching that Jesus is the Christ, the Messiah, and an angel lets them out of their captivity, and they're back in the temple preaching, and the leadership of the temple brings them kind of back in before them, and just Peter just reconfirms that this is real. Jesus really is God's anointed, that salvation comes through him. Sorry, we can't stop talking about it. And here today in the passage, we see a side conversation that happens with the council, and we're going to see a couple of really cool things here and things that we can take away. So this is our section, verses 33 to 42. When they, the council, heard this, they were enraged and wanted to kill them, the apostles. But a Pharisee in the council named Gamaliel, a teacher of the law held in honor by all the people, stood up and gave orders to put the men outside for a while. And he said to them, the council, "Men of Israel, take care what you are about to do with these men. For before these days, Theudas rose up. Remember him, that guy? Yeah, he was claiming to be somebody special. And a number of men, about 400 or so, they joined him. He was killed, and all who followed him were dispersed and came to nothing. After him, remember the guy Judas the Galilean? That guy, he rose up in the days of the census and drew away some of the people after him, but he too perished, and all who followed him were scattered. So in this present case, I tell you, keep away from these men and let them alone. For if this plan or this undertaking is of man, it will fail. But if it is of God, you will not be able to overthrow them anyway. You might even be found opposing God." And so Gamaliel takes the council and kind of says, listen, we've seen this stuff before, these uprisings and these different people rise up and claim to be someone, but it fizzles out. But if it's from God, there's nothing we can do to stop it. Now, this is very kind of interesting to see that this Pharisee, who Jesus kind of went after the hardest in his ministry, this Pharisee seems to be very open to the things of God, open to what God might be doing in the world. He's kind of open to Jesus. Interestingly enough, this guy, Gamaliel, was Paul's teacher and instructor, and he's open to Jesus. Now, we don't know the end of Gamaliel's life unless we do from church history, and I just haven't done that much research, but at least in this account, we don't know if he ever made a decision about Jesus. And this kind of brings up our first thing we can take away from this passage, is that at the end of the day, it isn't enough just to be open to the things of God or open to the possibility that Jesus is God's son, open to the possibility that Jesus really did live a sinless life, die on the cross for our sin in our place, rose to life victorious, and by believing in God's work through Jesus, that we can be reconciled to God and say, Jesus, here's my life, I follow you, I give you my everything, right? I trust you, and then have eternal, right? Be reconciled to God. It's not enough to be open to that, but to actually take a step of believing it and trusting it. And so a challenge for maybe some of us is, have you done that? Have you gotten to a place where maybe you're open to what the Bible has to say, you're interested, but at the end of the day, God is going to call you at some point to make a decision on Jesus. And so today, I kind of challenge maybe some of us to dig a little deeper and don't think that you can just stay neutral and kind of be Switzerland forever. But it's everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. And at some point, you need to make that decision and call upon the name of the Lord. And that is how you will be saved and be redeemed and forgiven. Now, it's cool because Gamaliel here says that if it's of God, you will not be able to stop it. And what do we have today, 2,000 years later? But the church growing and alive and well. And it's just so cool to see how God takes this man who isn't a Christian, at least at this point, to speak something that is true. You can't stop it. God's kingdom is on the move. So a couple really awesome things there for us to take away. And then the account finishes. So the council, they took his advice, and when they had called in the apostles, they beat them and charged them to not speak in the name of Jesus and let them go. Then they left the presence, the apostles left the presence of the council, rejoicing that they were counted worthy to suffer dishonor for the name. And every day in the temple and from house to house, they did not cease teaching and preaching that the Christ is Jesus, that the Messiah is Jesus. Have the apostles here. They just can't shut up about this Jesus. They're even beaten and told not to speak the name of Jesus anymore. And they cannot stop speaking up and speaking out and sharing what they've seen. A challenge for us. Most of us live very comfortable, safe, secure lives. And when we think of persecution, I mean, for most of us, it's maybe like loss of social status, maybe getting blocked on someone's social media account, maybe a strained relationship, maybe loss of position at work. And just to think that in comparison with what the church has had to suffer throughout its history, these men were beaten, but I mean, men and women have been burned at the stake. They've been tortured. They've been killed in horrendous ways, all for the sake of being witnesses and bearing testimony that Jesus is the Messiah. He is the Christ. These men and women, these Christians, brothers and sisters who had just this this courage and tenacity to not reject and to not hide and be ashamed of the gospel, even if it demanded their own lives at the end of the day, trusting that God's faithful and just, and there's glory on the other side. And so just a challenge for us to not love our comfort and acceptance and being looked at as great in the eyes of men, but instead to count it worthy, to be blown away that we would be counted worthy to suffer any reproach or persecution for the sake of the name of Jesus. And I know I need to grow in that a lot in my life. And so we'll join in praying for each other for that today. And let's be bold and see how God uses it this week. So love you guys. Have a great day.